So we've talked about these categories and different ways we can think about race, or different theories that people have put forward to categorize race. Okay, and we tend to like these categories. Having categories to place people or things into makes us feel more comfortable, especially in our very binary Western world. Okay, so we're trying to place people into these categories, but that doesn't always work, right? There aren't these clear lines between one race and another. Okay, maybe if you stood up someone from sub-Saharan Africa and someone from rural West Virginia side by side, someone with very dark skin and someone with very light skin, it might be easy to draw a line between those people and say, well, obviously one is black and one is white. But if you fill in the gaps between those people along the continuum of, let's say, skin color, so if you fill in the continuum of skin color, where do you draw the line? If there's a very gradual change, it makes it very difficult to draw this line. And that's how human phenotypic categories are. Okay? And so it's really difficult to draw these lines. And then going further, are these lines even beneficial? Is it beneficial to demarcate these different categories? Or is it just another way of categorizing people, a holdover from an older time? Okay. Additionally, these biological traits that we see, so skin tone and, let's say, hair texture or face shape or body size, there's not really a correlation between these categories. Okay, it may appear that way from our non-scientific point of view, but when you actually do research, there's not really correlation between these categories, or these phenotypic racial traits, as we like to think about them. Okay, and then even further, any phenotypic racial trait, as we might refer to them, these don't indicate any important biological variation. So we've said this before, that we like to think of these phenotypic or external racial traits as indicative of deeper or more fundamental differences. Okay, but that is not actually the case, right? And that these phenotypic traits also don't indicate any important biological variation, or any biological variation that goes beyond the expression of that phenotypic trait. Okay, and then you'll often hear that there's far greater variation within groups than between groups. And so some textbooks emphasize this and others don't. But there is some research that suggests that the variation within our racial categories, these culturally based racial categories, is far greater than variation between groups. Okay, so if all of these things are true, that there aren't these clear lines or biological basis for racial categories, then why does race feel so natural? It's really a very simple process that has a very simple name. So naturalization. This is the social process by which something, such as race, becomes part of the natural order of things. So it begins to feel very, very natural. Okay, and so since the 18th century, scientists have attempted to divide human variability into subspecies or races, and this is comes from, again, the evolutionary theory, where we're dividing animals into subspecies, or breeds of dog, for example. So we've tried to do that with humans, and it doesn't really work. There aren't subspecies of humans. Okay, but this process of naturalization has started to make these things feel very natural to us. Just like our racial categories feel very natural, there are cultures in which your race can change on a daily basis, and there are 30-some plus categories of race on the national census, and one day you might feel one race and the next day you might feel another. So just as our process, or our categories of race feel very natural, other cultures have their own categories that feel just as natural or just as real. And this happens through the same process of naturalization in both cultures. And that's, again, just that process through which something like race or gender becomes part of the natural order of things, or begins to feel like the only way it could be.